Hello and welcome to the Playing with Power podcast, a podcast where we talk all things cedh, edh, and Magic the Gathering. I am your host, Ashani, aka Jamaican Dude, and today I'm with my co-host, Kyle. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing pretty great today, Ashani. I'm very full of food. How are you?
I am fantastic. Today we have a fantastic, superb, awesome, and absolutely stunning human as our guest today, Mike Bonney. Mike, CEDH dad, the dad of the CEDH community. How are you, good sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for the wonderful intro.
Oh, well, you're a great human and great father, great husband. Many great
A
things
great,
you
a
are,
great
sir.
everything, really, from what
Every
I understand.
exactly. There we go. The man with many hands and many cookie jars. But before we go any further, I want to talk quickly about our sponsors. TC Rockets has one of the largest selection of toys, comics, games in San Diego, with thousands of MTG cards being added to their online store every morning. You never know what deals you'll find at TCRockets.com. You can keep up with the games tuning in into their Twitch stream every Tuesday and Friday for live paper magic. Fuel up and check out TC Rockets. Looking to pick up some fun CDH merch that also supports our channel? Check out our store. We have a variety of clothing design and even Dragon Shield Playing with Power logo sleeves. Check out the podcast description for more info. And our patron shout out for this episode is Phoenix.
Hey, thanks a lot, Phoenix.
You
Except for
are.
that Prosper list. Oh my gosh.
I did not see the Prosper list, but I assume it's a great list. I will not let Kyle roast you here. But yes, today, everyone who is listening, we're talking to the CEDHU or the CEDH dad. I don't know. He has many names.
I go
He's also. Go ahead.
I go by many monikers, but just know that I love you all. That's the important part.
That's the important part. When I conversate with Mike, I call him boss because he is my boss. And here we go. So, who are you, good sir? Let the community know who you are. Give us a rundown of who Mike is.
So yeah, I'm Mike Bainey. I am CEDH dad in a number of different places. I play EDH all the way from Goat Tribal all the way up to whatever deck you want to call the highest power in CEDH. Everything in the middle. So my whole shtick is playing the games, bringing people into the community, growing with everybody, hanging out, enjoying the time, and ensuring that everybody feels welcomed and calm, cool, and collect. I've been playing Magic since about 2016, I believe, and CDH for probably 2 or 3 years now. But I love all the things that we do. I love the whole community. Um, we I probably know for at this point, working with Ashani, working with Mike Zane, and the huge team of winners we have over there, and shouting teamer anything from the rooftops. That's just kind of my brand. So, but yeah.
All right, then give us a rundown. How did Eminence come together? How did you fall? How did you get into the Eminence? How
Yeah,
did that come about?
yeah, that's an interesting story. So Mikey, Mikey, H, he is kind of I would say the person that birthed the idea of Eminence, and then we slowly started kind of getting recruited. And I was actually recruited into Eminence. I wasn't part of the initial like founding roadway, but I got in early, and I was part of the founders once we actually like stabilized and incorporate, become a business, and all those things. So Eminence was born out of the idea that players know what they want to some extent, right? There's a lot of people that will define a lot of extravagant, wild things and yes, that exists. But by the vast majority, players know what they wanted, and we saw that, and we wanted to capitalize on it and give the players what they wanted, which was affordable, accessible events all across the country at a volume that isn't punishable in terms of time and gameplay. And we wanted to just provide this resource, and it slowly has started to evolve kind of into almost something that's like a TO kit, where yes, Eminence events are going to be a thing. We're here to stay. We have, a circuit that's developing, but we've also started to build out tools and resources that anybody can use um, to hold their own events. So it kind of pivoted from we want to give the community what they've been asking for, and all the things I said, to ensuring that everybody can give the community at any point in time, what they're asking for. So you see things like Command Tower coming up globally, right? We just yesterday we had an event in Japan, we had one in Portugal, we have a team in Scotland that's using it. Like, we're it's a global resource at this point. We have cedh, which there's a section in there completely designed to um, talk about TOing, talk about the differences and the minutia of how to do this, how to do that, how to capitalize on this thing, how to work that. If you have 16 players, the format look like versus 64 to 128 to 254. Like, what do you want to do there? And how do you map that out? So Eminence it started as a fun little, just give the community what they want. It's kind of evolved into a much larger community driven to just help Magic overall.
Absolutely. You mentioned the CDHU, CDH University. Give us a birth idea of that. How did that come about?
It came about through the a Twitter exchange with Ken. To be completely honest, Ken was talking about his decks, and Croc Sakashima is not exactly the easiest deck to just pick up and go. You have to have some degree of pilot lesson almost. You need to sit down and understand what you're doing and where you're doing it and how you're doing it, right? And the conversation kind of came out of that into, okay, well, there's a lot of decks that are like that. And then I'd thrown onto Twitter, like, and I bring along with me to my LGS this thing called a teacher's box. And my teacher's box is 5 to 6 CEH decks that are all proxied out, and all of the primers associated with them. And I teach people how to play cedh, or more notably, teach them that they're way closer to playing cedh than they think they are. Because a lot of people want to paint cedh as this big bad dog that just sits over here in the corner and just plays their own game, poo poo on you. But in reality, card design, card power, the way that people think repetitively over time about their decks, about improving in XYZ areas, a lot of people are way closer to playing cedh than they think they are. Sometimes it's even 4 or 5 cards off of a list, right? Like, you can have somebody playing Rael, and they're killing it, and they understand that at the core mechanic, you're just discard, draw more. That's it. But if you do that efficiently enough, okay, well, now it's not hard to get close to the database list, and showing people that kind of the birth of the teacher's box, and then amplify that up, 100 levels, and that's where CEDHU came into play. I want to teach people, we want to teach people, all the mentors in there, that one, if you want to play CEDH, you can play CEDH. This isn't a hidden cheat code in life. You don't, it's accessible, it's easy to do. You need to understand kind of some incremental pieces, and those pieces are what we present. And CEDHU has been live, thriving. We've been sitting anywhere between 500 to 600 people, and I clean them out consistently. But we have conversations that go in there. I mean, it's calmed down now from the initial like burst of excitement from its existence. But there's still, every single day, there are conversations in different channels about, will this work? Can this pilot? Does this work in the way that I want it to? How do people feel about this? And it's kind of its own growing, self-sustaining community now of, I want to learn to play CEDH. What do I do? Well, here you go. Don't say it on the Bird app. That's like step one. Like, don't do that. That's bad.
So it's pretty much we're trying to bring newer players to the format. is pretty much what you're saying. And there's a few people who cool. I know there's a lot of people in the community that try to do the like budget brews. People who do budget CDH decks to bring more people into the community because CDH as a community, I think, is very small. If you look at it in the grand scheme of EDH, like it's not really it's a very small niche community, and if we can get more people and kind of relieve the stigma of it's a turn two format or the games only last 10 minutes, whatever, or we're a bunch of elitists, all the stigma that comes with CDH. If we can have somewhere that can remove that stigma, is great. So what what do you believe we can do as a community to get rid of that negativity that we have as CDH players?
I mean, I see it a lot nowadays, and it's really it's an awesome thing to see. Where I think we're past the point now where pub stomping and elitism and all these things that we were previously is no longer as prevalent. I'm not going to say it's gone completely, but it's definitely not as strong as it was.
Okay.
And I think a key contributor of that is the fact that we've spent a lot of time bringing people into the scene just naturally, and it's interesting to see people like Lua comes out of nowhere and it's just like, yeah, you know what, I like Winota, I'm gonna do that. Okay, cool. And she hops in there and boom, all of a sudden you have this high profile individual playing cedh who was literally none of the things that we stereotype and paint cedh to be. And you see people more willing and open to giving it a go, but also to the point I made with the teacher's box, you also see people learning that they are so close to playing this age game and they don't even realize it until you go in there as somebody that has experience and say, "Oh yeah, you're right there. Like you're towing the line. Like let me show you how to kind of get over the hump." Or if you don't want to toe the line and you're like, "Hey, I like to play this kind of magic." Okay, cool. Well, at least we've established that. Okay, you're really close to turn three in this game. But also breaking the stigmas and having conversations. Like people need to talk more and not take things to the chest. Your deck is not your personality. Just move on from it. Like it's gonna be okay. Stuff like that. And I see people progressing and people the community overall being much more open. The discourse isn't so insane around CEDH being bad people. It's I mean it's got a variety of other issues, but you don't necessarily see that as much anymore.
Are you saying Cal is not a pirate? He's a prince of pirates. Do you not know this?
I would say that Cal is the Prince of Pirates, but he does it with smile, grace, and love and affection.
It's a very loving pirate
Yeah,
community, I would
yeah,
say.
yeah.
Not really mean or
He
anything like
tips his
that.
hat
It
at
could be
rather than
could
you know.
could be a little more mean. Maybe the pirate community could be a little more rude sometimes. Really get into it, really role play a little bit.
But yeah, no, I was just trying to poke fun because, Cal is I believe the crown was passed from Zane to Cal as King and Prince of Pirates. But
That's what I've been told, but I haven't really gotten a chance to play the deck much since then.
I
So
was
we'll see.
what?
no
What
Cal
happened,
is
bro?
Cal is the
What
pirate guy, but I also don't see Cal playing the pirate guy.
I know you're right.
That's 4-1 out for the homie.
Cal, I think the community needs to know what has happened.
Uh, well, you see, I haven't been able to compete in any tournaments because most of the tournaments as of late have been put on by Playing with Power. Um, I was gonna play it at Punt City until somebody talked me into playing Gila at the last second. Rookie mistake.
Rookie mistake, indeed.
Uh, I wasn't able to make it out to Oktoberfest for personal reasons. I will be playing it at Silicon Dynasty. Speaking of Silicon Dynasty, Mike, you want to tell us a little bit about that really quick?
Sure. Elevator speech. 160 of the nation's best players on a large scale West Coast event, because apparently we need to draw that line of distinction. 2-day event. Just Punt City on steroids on the West Coast. That's pretty much it. Larger venue, lots of space. CEH tournament, we're uh, $4,000 prize pool, so we're not messing around in terms of that. The room blocks are insane. I've had people trying to get their rooms and everything covered, and when they find out that it's $109 to sleep in the room on the West Coast, their brains kind of melt a little bit. So that's nice. Split it with your friends. Do all the things that Magic players do. We support that. Please do. It's also, most importantly, proxy friendly. We do have some rules, right? Can't just come in there with 8.5 by 11 taped to some sleeves. But we are proxy friendly, and we support that. We will have vendors there. It's just Fun City on steroids, the good stuff. So it is the first of a 4 event circuit for Eminence Gaming next year. So we'll have 2 West Coast events and 2 East Coast events, and then we will have our nationals. Our national event will all the events leading up to that kind of work qualifiers to that in magical, interesting ways. Um, but nationals will be held in the center of, I guess it's called the Midwest, but uh, center column of the country to give some love and affection to that area. So very excited about that.
Could you give us a date on Silicon Dynasty?
Yes, I can never remember if it's the 14th to 15th or the 15th to 16th in January. 14th and 15th. So 13th, 14th, and 15th is Silicon Dynasty, San Jose, California. Tickets are live right now. Eminence dot events slash silicon slash or dash down. Excuse me.
I assume Sean is making the cross country drive.
So we have a few folks. We have a West Coast casting team and an East Coast casting team. So if Sean wants to make that happen, that's up to Sean.
So, what Mike is saying is you will not see Sean or
Ah,
Scott. You will see Shauna and Adam from Sad Dolls will be casting that event. So go check them out. They also stream on Fridays. Since I'm pulling double duty here, they stream on Fridays, Friday evenings. Between 7 Central. They kind of varies. We have not locked in a schedule yet, but check them out. Great content there, and me, Scott, and I do Monday nights at 7 p.m. Um, Eastern. Yeah, so if you want to see what happens throughout the week of CDH, who won the recent tournament, um, deck breakdown, toxicness. We come join us on Eminence.
All the things.
And yeah, just join us on Twitch on Eminence. But
you can even get toxicness. Woo! I'm in.
That's
oh yes, we are filled with the toxic. But yes, great plug here from Mike. Great lead up from Kyle for giving him the Silicon Dynasty. Giving up the layup there. But yes, give us a little detail about your Magic journey. I know you told us a little brief overview.
sure.
Did you play any competitive formats, Mike, or were you just a casual at heart?
I started. So 2016 was in there. I went to the local shop. Um, Effort to break my social anxiety. I had severe social anxiety to the point where I didn't really like leaving the house. I didn't like these large groups of people. Sounds are, a big no-no for me. And my wife told me that I needed to get out of the house and I needed to start trying to get over it. So the very first place that I decided to go was an LGS, which I don't know. Sometimes that can be great and sometimes it's horrible. But either way, that was where I went. And I ran into a group of guys. It was Commander Night. I didn't know what was happening. I had seen Magic cards. I had bought Magic cards, but I had never played. Thought they were really cool. I actually got in my car and I drove about halfway home because I was that nervous and like just sweating. And my wife told me that I was not allowed back in the house until I went in there and talked to one person. So the very first human being that I talked to in the world of Magic the Gathering was Harry, who built my. So my exposure to Magic started out swift and aggressively into EDH. I didn't play Modern. I didn't play Standard. I didn't play Legacy. I didn't play anything like that. I just played EDH. Very first deck I ever owned was the Brea Precon. Uh, that was the first game I ever won. Was off of Brea Precon, and it was the day that I bought the deck, and I just lucked into it because my opponent didn't count right. Um, it was an interesting go, and then from there, it just kind of escalated. I am I have like ADHD and a bunch of other odd, fun, exciting things going on, and Magic is the only time when I can actually control my brain and how it wants to focus, prioritize, and itemize things. So I love to brew. I love to think about Magic. I love to think about what we can do with the community. What's the community doing? What, how can we do things better with Magic? Because it's the only space that I feel that I can express myself in the way that I like and the way that I want. And from 2016 to now, I've brewed probably close to 300 different decks all across casual into CEDH. Doing insane things like cascading my entire deck out in an Averna list to playing, Elf Ball with Freyalise. That's my second deck I ever built. It was, yeah, long storied history with the Magic of Gatherings.
Awesome. Kyle, you want to give the world how you started?
Oh man, how I started playing Magic the Gathering. I feel like I've told this story on this podcast before. I probably haven't though. It was a real classic. I was working at Subway as a young man. Subway for all the uncultured people out there. And somebody was like, "Hey, you're a weirdo nerd who hangs out at the used game store, anyways. What if I taught you this card game that we can play together when we're bored and there's no business because we're at an out of the way Subway?" And I said, "Oh, that sounds great." And the rest was history.
Absolutely short and spicy. Love
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Well, the set at the time was Return to Ravnica. Great time to really jump in, and that's I think that's like right around when a lot of people started playing. That was when they first like made a really huge print run in comparison to the old sets for the first time and all that kind of stuff. So from then on, I got into Standard. I got into Modern a little bit. I liked Limited a lot, and started playing EDH around end of high school. Then I went off to college, and EDH was like the only way I could play Magic. Got really into it. The spiky side of me was like, "Hey, what if this was better?" Not what if this was better. I love playing EDH, but I was like, what if this was spikier? And so I literally just like stumbled into CEDH in like 2016. It's a bit ahead of my time compared to a lot of people, I guess. But and then just been jamming CEDH ever since.
Beautiful, beautiful story. What was your first deck?
Like my first actual like EDH deck, standard deck. What?
Yeah, I guess sure. Give us one of each. I don't know.
The first standard deck I put together was it was actually I never actually played standard proper until around Dragons of Tarkir release, and I played blue black dragon control. You got to play Ugin, and you play Dragonlord Silumgar, and all this removal, and Crux of Fate to blow up all non-dragons.
Oh, non-dragons.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you could like wipe the board and keep your like 4/7 flyer or whatever in play. Yeah. And my first EDH deck, somebody gifted me entirely built Crufix deck. That was my first EDH deck.
Wow.
Crufix. Which one is that again?
Crufix is a 5 CMC Simic God from the original Theros block. He gives
Go ahead.
He gives you unlimited hand size, and instead of mana emptying from your pool, it becomes colorless instead. He was a real classic Simic commander for a minute there.
Yeah, you store your mana into him. You get to play big,
and then you just
spells.
just play big stuff. Yeah. And that deck over time evolved into Momir Vig, and then eventually, when I was like, "What if this deck was better?" I turned it into Rashmi. So, That
Ooh.
deck had the direct. Rashmi was very good in 2016. Okay, sorry, 2017. She wasn't released in
Easy.
2016.
Those good is a strong word there, but
Quite
I was
fine, defensible.
sure. It seemed like Curious Control is okay. I mean, sure, it was acceptable at the time, but hey, not roasting you at all. But cool.
But
Simic,
yep,
yeah.
there was a direct through line that deck over time just became Rashmi cedh. So
Crewfix was a good one. I remember playing against that deck that does hard cast the old Ulamog or whatever on some ridiculously quick turn. Yeah, good times. So Mike, what is the future of Eminence and CDH University?
So, if trying to paint it simply so that we don't get too in the weeds, our objective as a group is to ensure that CDH tournaments become something that is as respected, looked forward to, uh, as a modern 5K or a Pioneer, whatever. If SCG is throwing an event, it can be a CDH event, right? Our objective is to have the community understand that these things are real, capable of happening. Um, you're starting to see them pop up enough now that the variance argument of EDH tournaments will always exist because EDH is EDH. That's what it is. But you're starting to see enough data plugged against people that playing these things consistently, right? I'll use Ian as an example here, right? Ian has gone to damn near every single EDH event, and you'd be hard pressed to find a spot where he hasn't top 15. Now, I will say that when you get into single elim, the value becomes much more important, and that's just becomes part of the equation. But when you have somebody that's topping every single event, right prior to somebody that hits top cut after all Swiss and all the rounds prior, like that's a good player, and you can start developing these competitive communities, these competitive you know groups of people. You know, Ian our Reed Duke, is he our LSV? Like who is you're starting to get these personalities that are coming out, right? And that's what we want to see as we move forward. Where modern has that following, limited has that following, standard used to have that following, right? Legacy has that. CEDH wants to have that as well. The objective with Eminence is to build it out everywhere, be it us or someone else. We want to support them so that that can happen. Um, from a business perspective, we have global goals going into 2024. 2023 is about establishing CEDH as a viable tournament format across the U.S. Period. Right, developing that circuit out, developing 4 or 5Ks, and then have nationals be this very big, large event, um, to kind of crop out the best, and that's what it is. But moving past that in 2024, there's global goals attached to all that, and we're already starting to plant the seeds for that on the back end. My job is to connect all of those dots, build out all those connections. We have our affiliate program with shops all around the US right now, but now it's even built out into Portugal, right? We have England. We have again, we're the official service that the AMMP uses. The armed forces, the military group, right? So we're everywhere, and we're just trying to connect all of the dots so that CEDH can become what it's ultimately, I think, what it's destined, which is right up there with modern and everything else. So that's the goal. That's the direction. And we're just gonna keep plugging away at it. I think we're doing pretty good so far.
Awesome. What about CDH University?
Yes. So CEDH University is. I never intended it to get big, and I will continue to grow it and you know mold it. Its utilization, its development over time is largely contingent on the people that want to use it. CEDHU is a mentality more so than it needs to be a place to discuss things, right? It exists right now to drive that discussion. It exists to teach mentors how to actually mentor people rather than just closing the book and saying, no, this isn't good, run this, don't ask me again. It's about establishing that mindset of welcoming people in a way that's relatable, comfortable, and not live on the Bird app. That's what it's there for. If we can do that as a community, do that consistently moving forward, and nobody feels the need to actually have that, then CDHU eventually kind of becomes a seminar series or a YouTube channel or something like that, where we just talk about that kind of quote unquote onboarding process. But we go back to just having, go in the GitRog Discord and just go nuts because now they know how to drive the conversations. So CDHU may evolve into a much larger thing than it is, but for now, it's just about establishing that mentality with mentors on how to bring new people, rather bombarding folks with information. Because if there's one way that you can ruin an onboarding experience for anybody trying to get into CEDH, it's talking about CEDH like they've done it the same way you have for the last 6 or 7 years. Cal talking about everything that he knows about pirates to somebody that just wants to play pirates is going to just deter them immediately because it's so much.
It's a bit much, yeah.
Yeah. So it's about just doing that in easy, manageable ways. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's one of the things that I always wanted when I joined the community, to have one place where people can just leave their ego aside and just come and have a discussion. Like, I wish all the content creators or all the people who are doing like budget time, like budget brews that Timmy T 1000 runs, if you guys just could come together and like build, because he also have the communities here. Yeah, and you just come together and have like where you have the best minds. Like, the best teacher is not the best practitioner. Like, sometimes you can talk magic, but if you can't be the person who um can sequence it and all those things. So like, I really want like everyone to like come together so we can have where, oh, this guy can talk, Kyle can talk about all the niche sequences about pirates, but he can't win a game with a deck to save his life. So, I mean, if we can just have both people on that side of it, that would make it great. So we can get more players in the community. The more players into the community, the more content get made, the more money to be made if you want to make from that side of it. So that's always a thing that I want.
Checking your ego at the door is, if there's one hat that one thing we can hang our hat on in CDHU is that it's not ego driven. Been largely the way that it's become as big and as useful as it has was because you know that the things that you're getting and the information you're getting is from one, from somebody that knows, and two, doesn't make you immediately feel, you know, not dumb or inferior or anything like that, but just one of those things. Checking the ego at the door and presenting your list and your options and stuff like that as more open-ended scenarios enables a person to not only learn the list itself, but also why those decisions were made. They come to the conclusion. It's a wonderful thing to see. It really, really
Yes,
is. So
I agree. I'm also in there, and I'm like, just the discussion sometimes is just great.
yeah,
Like, you don't have someone like, oh, here's my list, and I don't like to use the term cloud farming, but like, oh, I'm just posting this list so I can get someone to look at it and my views go up because it makes my ego feels better.
yeah,
It's actually just to try to build the best 99 or 98 card deck that you can build, right?
yeah,
Like, I understand not everyone wants to play. You have super competitive people who are playing to win, and you have people who are, they're spiky players, but they're just playing to enjoy the game.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, CDHU gives you both of those things, and
yeah.
all the other content creators out there doing the same thing. So yeah, no, that part is cool. I really a big I'm not that hyper. I'm really not hyper. I don't type a lot in any Discord, but I really do. Like if someone wants help with TNT Hulk
Yep.
or Get Wrong or whatever, I do put my opinion of what I think of these decks, but just helping someone at the end of the day so they can come into the community and enjoy it is I think what we want at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's good to see people having those conversations. It makes people feel comfortable. There's a lot of feedback that comes back, even from people that are quiet. Um, you know, you'll go a month and a half and not hear from somebody, but then if somebody directly reaches out and tags them and asks a question, there's a better than not chance that that person that's been quiet for a month and a half does show up and just say, "Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's air it out." And the fact that you have that accessibility, and the fact that you have that moment of discovery, and it's treated on equal footing in equal grounds, not with ego, zero clout, all of that. It's literally just about magic. That's what CD is for.
So you talked about data. I think for the CDH and EDH tournament community, not one community, but tournament aspect of EDH, we're in the infancy stage, right? We can agree with that. Like it's between last year and this year, we just start seeing a bunch of tournaments pop up. There's been a lot of tournaments this year. Do you think that has changed the views of the community of like deck building or anything like that, or how people now look at the format with all the tournaments where you have somewhere to actually prove your skill?
I think we're in a weird place right now. A good place, but a weird place. Um, in that we have these, let's just call it, there is an explosion of events happening, right? Playing with Power has an event. Uh, we'll have an event, every other month. Boom, done.
Yeah, I had a CDH local this weekend that I couldn't make it to, and that's the first time I've seen something like that in Columbus in like a year.
Wow, that's awesome.
I think what we're seeing is it's proving some things, but it's also enabling us to see some weird trends. I think that it's proving one that CDH right now is incredibly diverse. Um, we do have our problem children here and there, but it's incredibly diverse format right now. It does enable you to do the what you want to do at the ceiling that you want to do it. Right. It does reward you for knowing every angle of your deck. It does reward you for all those things, and you even start seeing some things pop up that's even quote unquote meta. Right. You have a lot of people that are now brewing. I don't want to run this. I want to run this deck, but I need to be prepared for Winota. Right. I need to be prepared for Pirates. I need to be prepared for Rogside or whatever it is. People are starting to become familiar with the quote unquote meta, which in and of itself is an insane thing to think about because, a year and a half ago, we didn't have a quote unquote meta, right? We did have Flash Hulk. That was a thing, right? But that's not a meta. That's play this or you play something that beats it, done. But now we have a competitive scene meta, which is something that is completely new. And people are actively like brewing the decks that they want to do to answer these other things, and they're starting to have that again modern legacy standard type interaction where you're saying, okay, well, I'm going to run into Cage a lot, let me make sure that I prepare to do this. I'm going to see Breach a lot, let me make sure I'm prepared. it it's really interesting seeing how much it pans out like that, and I think it's really healthy for the format, to go down that route. The I think what you're going to see eventually is you're going to start seeing breakout tiers of event, not quality, but you're going to see what used to be like the Magic Pro Tour, where you're going to have the WotC sponsored SC, whatever it is, 100K 4-day CEDH event, right? And then if you break down the tiers, you're going to have that. Then you're going to have these 2-3K events, right, that are happening monthly. They're, quote unquote qualifiers for that, or however you want to break it out. But you're going to have this middle tier where people are going to kind of use that as a testing grounds for their whatever. And then you're going to see this localized tier of competitive play where, you come in, you pay $10, you're going to run a 1 day event. It's X number of rounds, no turns, whatever the format may be, and you're going to see those popping up. And you're already seeing that develop right now, which I think is awesome for the community, because instead of us, oh, when's the next, cedh tournament coming around? We only have 2 per year. Like Cal said, you can literally just go to your LGS and like, hey, when's the next pop up event? Like, oh yeah, it's Thursday. Come on down. And like, it's accessible now, and that's like one of the big pillars of Eminence, right? Accessibility, affordability, right? Those are the big things. Like, it's phenomenal to see.
Lovely. You have any views on this, Kyle, of how the tournaments coming up has changed uh, the views of players in CDH and EDH?
Oh, I don't know if I've seen any views change or anything, but I think it's really showed off a proof of concept that people have had for a while and have been talking about for a while, that people actually, like, CDH players actually do care about uh, having chances to play CEDH competitively. We've kind of talked a lot in the past. The community has kind of talked a lot in the past about how CEDH. You play in a specific way. You're playing smart. You're playing tight. You're playing these really powerful decks. But 95% of the time, it's kind of just like normal EDH, where we're all chilling, we're all hanging out, having a drink, whatever. And I think people have also been looking for this outlet to be able to sit down and seriously jam. Let's get the round timer started. Let's all actually play. Let's have the judges here in case we need them, all that kind of stuff. I think it's been fascinating to see all the people who thought that the community wanted this be proved right. So, I don't know.
It's also interesting for me to see like recently, like there's been a lot of like top players from the 60 card format coming over, like
Yeah,
just recently Oktoberfest.
awesome.
I believe it was Brian Koval who won Oktoberfest.
Yeah,
Big 60 card tournament grinders, and I talked to a few of them, like Brian and wow, I'm blanking on his name right now, but
Bryant?
Bryant and
Phil.
Phil, yes, like those group of guys, and Matt Sperl, yeah.
Yeah,
So like those group of guys where like what we saw, like we were already playing tight and competitive. Like there's another layer to that.
yeah,
Like there's another layer of competitiveness
yeah,
that you can play at. Like we sit down, even in a tournament setting, we sit down to play a game. It was like, oh, you fetch? Oh, I didn't want to play this. Like, they're like, yeah, cool, dude. Like, that's okay. But like, when you go to the other level of competitiveness, where like, oh no, you did that, you stick with that, or it's not as laid back as you can see. And I think a lot of people are now kind of learning that. That I don't. There's some people who like that, and some people who don't, because people who play modern and try to play competitiveness, they're trying to get away from that super competitive, like makes it seem kind of ugly to a point, where people's personality becomes a little different, and you're like, you kind of have to understand it to a point. I didn't understand it. I was also a person who disliked like super competitive people in the 60 card format. But like I was talking to Drake the other day, you're like, hey, these people, like this is their income. Like this is how they survive, and like you're trying to take their money away. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even look at it that way. I just came here to hang out for a weekend with my friends, playing this
Yeah,
5K modern event.
and they're on the clock.
yeah,
And yeah, and they're on the clock. I'm like, if you look at it that way, that's a different experience. I'm like, yeah, like EDH is not to that level yet, and will eventually get there. But like, you have to understand there's a different level of competitiveness, and I've been learning it recently, and it's a completely different world. It's a different monster, but I think if we want to make EDH that level of competitiveness for it to be successful, and like what Mike was saying, to have personalities like Ian or like sick robot is playing who goes to all these tournaments, and you can see they top 16 with these decks, and they're consistently doing top 16, top 4s. You can definitely see that, oh, their concept that they're saying is correct, right? And like, people, at the end of the day, people want to make sure like whatever they're putting on paper is correct, right? If you're building this deck, you want to prove that this deck is competitive for whatever, ego or non-ego reasons. But I think for me, the tournaments, I always like the tournaments. I've been I've been playing in the webcam tournaments since like the inceptions of it. Like, I think Time Twisted was whoever. Yeah, like that's where webcam, I want to say, like, finally came in. Mike was when the first EDH DDM gaming, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like we're coming from like the first group of where tournament EDH came from. Like, was this 3 years ago, 2 years ago now?
Yeah.
And
For the world.
it has grown. Yeah, it has grown leaps and bounds since then, and that's, for me, that's cool to see. Um, Closing thoughts, gentlemen.
I don't know. I'm proud of where Eminence is. I'm proud of where the Playing with Power crew is. I'm proud of where cedh is. I think we all are doing a great job growing the community. I think the topics are good. I'm excited to see what the future is. It's going to be fun.
Kyle.
Play Teamer Pirates. Just do it. No, closing thought. Unless you are a cEDH deck that is very specifically looking to turn off artifacts, you should specifically look into playing Arcane Signet, all of the talismans in your color, and City of Traders. All to accurately and consistently turn your Mox Opal that is already in your list on time. Thank you.
Um, Good job. Well done. That's great information. And a big thanks again to our sponsor, TC Rockets. Make sure you give us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast aggregator. You'll be surprised how much it helps. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and more. All links are in the episode notes. Well, gentlemen, that's about wraps up this episode of the podcast. Tune in next time when we talk more about our favorite format in our favorite game, Magic the Gathering. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.